gone by. You know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on a tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this whole world is a new world and a bold world for me. For me. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I feel so good. I feel so good.
Rick, kill the music, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call the August 28th Board of Directors meeting to order. If you would please stand and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. My name's Matt Campick. I'm the president.
Dan Lendiger, Vice President.
Mark Eckert, Treasurer.
Sean Kreiderman, Secretary.
Larry Santora, Assistant Treasurer.
Denise Lexell, Director.
Ray Kuhn, Assistant General Manager.
Walter Yazzie, General Manager.
Charlie Shawless, Recording Secretary.
Thank you. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the June 26th Annual Corporation Meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion by the board? Any discussion by the residents? All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Next order of business is to approve the minutes of the June 26th Board of Directors meeting. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second? Thank you. Any discussion by the board? Any discussion by our members? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next on our agenda is our strategic plan update. I guess that's me. Next slide, please. So here's our mission statement. You know about the beautiful place we live in, but we wake up, when I say we, the board, the staff, and all of our advisory committees, wake up to ensure that we're providing you all with a broad variety of amenities and activities, with well-maintained facilities and quality services. That's what we aspire to every day. Next slide. So here's our vision statement: to be the premier active adult community of choice in southern Arizona. That's where we want to go long term. Next slide. And so our values, I keep talking about these as often as I can for reasons. I'd like to talk about excellence today. The consistent evaluation of our facilities, amenities, and services is very timely as we are in the budget development process for 2025. And the staff has been working very hard on that exact task. Continuous improvement of our processes. Walter's been driving the staff all year to produce KPIs, key process indicators, so we can actually use data to make database decisions as we go through the execution of our annual plans. And so these values are more than just things on a piece of paper. They're the guideposts for how we treat one another. I have a sister-in-law who's got a bumper sticker, and I used to laugh at it. And today it's very appropriate. It has two little words. It says, "Be kind." And I'd like to share that with the community. If we could remember to be kind in all of our interactions with one another and with all the members that make everything that happens in this community happen, we'll be a richer place. Go ahead, next slide. Goal 1, strategic governance and empowered management. I'm the champion of that. Obviously, as your president, it's my responsibility to provide leadership for our corporation. Next slide. The way we defined that was to adopt and utilize best practices for strategic community governance, with a strong emphasis on achieving organizational alignment, while also prioritizing guidance, direction, accountability, and performance planning to set clear expectations and measure progress for building trust and enhancing community engagement. And I can stand before you today and testify that the board, the staff, and all of our advisory committees have leaned into this task very, very heavily. So I've tried a different approach. I want to give you a little stoplight chart. We had 7 objectives for this goal. We developed and deployed the board manual back in January. That's what provided all the guidance from the board to both the staff, Walter and his staff, and to our advisory committees. Before we do this meeting every month, we have a meeting with all of our committee chairs. We do that at 8 o'clock. And this morning, Lee Lexell and the Golf Committee provided us with an update on their goals and objectives for the year. I can tell you this program is alive and well within the governance structure of our community. We're working on updating board and committee orientations. We have work to do. We have a very well-defined process for coming to you on a monthly basis. The lady on the end of the table down there does all the hard work. We tell her what we need to do, and then she's got to shepherd all of us to get her the PowerPoints so we can come here and communicate good information to you every month. So Charlie, thanks for what you do to get us all in line each month. Number 4 is really defined with number 1 with the board guidance that was issued with the board manual, but also with the updates we do on a monthly basis with our committee chair meeting. Enhancing communication with residents. a never-ending battle. We still have residents that tell us they don't receive information. We still have residents that tell us they don't receive their POA statements. We still have residents that tell us that they don't receive special assessment statements. I don't know, I've kind of exhausted myself in all the ways that we're trying to communicate. We have the Monday message, obviously. Golf does an update every Tuesday. We're sending out special messages to you. I'm sending out, keeping you apprised of what's happened. Walter and I, actually, we've become quite the tag team. Talking about money as it relates to the special assessment. And any time that there's a hot topic that we need to get into your hands immediately, we're trying to do that. It seems like no matter how much we do, we still don't get good grades for communication. So we'll continue to work on it. Sean Kreiderman has been designated as the communications champion for the board. She takes the job very seriously. I cannot keep up with her. Effectively managing our governing documents and rules enforcement. This is the real fun side of being a board member. There's nothing wrong with our governing documents. It's enforcing all of the rules that we have. Believe it or not, there are folks in the community that don't want to follow rules. I'm sure that would shock most of you. But we get put in some very difficult and challenging positions. But we have to stand up. That's our responsibility to you. We only have two major obligations under the law for you, our community, with our governance structure. We have to maintain the common property, and we have to enforce our rules. It doesn't say enforce the rules when you feel like it. It doesn't say enforce the rules when it's convenient. And it doesn't say enforce the rules for people you don't like. It says enforce all the rules. And so we're forced to do that, and we do our very best. I wish we were perfect at all of it, but we're trying hard, I promise you. And ensure that the strategic plan and action plans with the staff and the committees are integrated and effectively being employed across the corporation. And I've already told you, I can validate that that indeed is happening. So I'm very pleased about the progress between the board, Walter and his staff, and all of our advisory committees. Many of our chairs are sitting here, and I just want to publicly thank everybody for embracing the strategic plan, all the goals and objectives that we put in place, and more importantly, for your individual leaderships on the committees that advise our boards to help us do our work. So thank you. You can give them a round of applause if you would. So that's our update from the governance foxhole. I'm now going to ask Ray Kuhn to provide an update. He is our champion for sustainable membership, and he's going to tell you what that means.
All right, thank you, Matt. Goal 9, Sustainable Membership Champion. Ensure that we continue to attract potential home buyers who share in the lifestyle we offer. The objectives around that goal: deliver on our mission by providing an exceptional member experience and a warm and welcoming HOA. Could you go to the next slide further? There you go. Provide support for the real estate community by creating a marketing package for real estate agents and residents. And the board linkage matrix involves the staff for goal number 2 and the FWR committee on goal number 1. So like Matt, I have a stoplight chart here. Before I go into that, I'd just like to share a quote with you. Therefore, it behooves us to do our best to see that the standard of the average citizen is kept high. And the average cannot be kept high unless the standard of the leaders is very much higher. Why do I say that? Well, I'm going to share with you what our staff is doing to maintain that member experience for you by department. So the first is in facilities management. What are we doing there? Well, we have subject matter experts on the staff for HVAC and kitchen appliance equipment. We recently brought on Bill McGinn, our leader, who has demonstrated outstanding team leadership for us to this point. Thank you, Bill, for being on board. Common area. I show that as amber, not for lack of effort. Yes, the progress is a bit slower than we anticipated, but it's not unexpected. At the outset of that, we shared with you that we didn't really know how long it would take for us to get through level 5 maintenance. And as I said, it's proving to be a bit slower, but it will improve as we learn and bring on staff and get them trained and experienced. So that work is ongoing. Administrative support, strong leader and team. They serve over 1,000 residents per month. Charlie demonstrates command of her team and does a great job there. Thank you. Fitness. Well, last year we endeavored to provide our fitness department with more space, and we executed that, and we are using that space most effectively. Those classes are generally full. Even in the summer, in our slow season, a few of those classes are still full. So doing a great job there with Jeanette. Lifestyle. Demonstrate continuous effort to serve residents with free stuff. Everybody likes free stuff, right? We've had a free concert. We've had a free movie. They were both very well attended, and so thank you for coming out to those. Food and beverage, lots and lots of effort this past year on improving our food and beverage efforts. Customer satisfaction is up and revenue is up. So continuous improvement there, but we are making very good progress. IT, system reliability is very high. Recently, we replaced 4 switches in our network. Those switches were placed at the time of our transition, and they were now end of life and no longer supported. We didn't replace all of them. We replaced the critical ones, the ones that would create downtime for us on the network. So we will come back and replace the additional ones. I believe there are a total of 7 as needed. Or actually, I think proactively next year we plan to replace those. Marketing, amazing amount of information that is delivered to you through our marketing department. 2 people, just a ton of information on a daily basis comes out of that center. Accounting, we recently had an assessment, and our POA basically at the same time. And so parallel efforts by our accounting team, doing a remarkable job there. Theater, I've said this before, I'll say it again, it's an amazing venue, very unique in the industry. Attendance at our shows is up, but we still have some improvement there. I'd like to see every one of these sold out, and I think it's totally possible. Patrol, thank you. They offer a presence 24/7 in our community to keep us safe and secure. Dale does a great job with his team in leading that effort. Golf, I heard this morning that both courses are in amazing condition. Our course conditions are superb at this time, and we are seeing more players on the Mountain View course year over year, so looking to improve upon that as well. HR, our jobs are filled. We've lacked the last couple of years. We've had difficulty getting some of those jobs filled, attracting people out of Tucson to come up here to Saddlebrook too. But some of our efforts in reaching out to potential candidates is proving fruitful. Most of our jobs are currently filled. Food and beverage is always a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge, but much improved in the common area and in facilities specifically. And then lastly, the FWR committee. We offered a new activity for you in establishing a cornhole club and providing space for a cornhole complex. Those courts are ready to receive the boards, the cornhole boards. They'll be in a few weeks, and we'll get those placed, and we'll get that kicked off for you in early fall. All right, goal objective 2, provide support for real estate community by creating a marketing package for real estate agents and residents. We've had 2 meetings with realtors to date, conducted in April and in August. New resident orientation packet, those are in place and being continuously updated and provided. And lastly, a marketing package for realtors. That's an open action. That's not been addressed yet, but it's clearly on our list of things to do. And that's what I have for you this morning. Thank you.
Ray, thanks for that report. It's now time for our general manager's update, and I'll turn this to Walter.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to stand up here just because I got a short brief after my short update. So you saw, and I want to re-emphasize that the staff is working hard and we are well integrated into the strategic plan. As you saw Ray go through just one goal of the plan, you can see there's 9 goals and the staff is well engaged in all 9 of those goals. So every day we're working very hard to make the strategic plan come to life, to accomplish those missions and the vision that you have here in Saddlebrook. Again, one of my goals here is to point you to the website to get a lot of the updates on what's going on in the community. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to cover a lot of that here. I'm going to ask you to go to your website and you can see all of the different activities that are going on there. There's calendars that lay that out for you. A couple things I do want to point out. Tomorrow, we talked about a free concert. So tomorrow, there's going to be a free concert. Come out, enjoy the concert. I believe there's going to be a bar, so come get some drinks, and maybe you come early, get some dinner, and go to the free concert. A great activity for you here. The free movies, those are great to come out, watch for those. There'll be another free movie. Some of you also signed up for a wine dinner, I think in July. I think that one was canceled, but in September. They're going to have another wine dinner, so I think that's pretty well full. What else is going on? September 2nd or this weekend, I believe the luau is going on. So get a ticket there. I think there's already over 200 tickets sold for the luau, so there's still about 100 spots left for you. So please come out and enjoy the things that the staff is putting on for you. I mean, it's just a great place to be here, great activities to do. So I'm not going to cover a lot of finance because you're going to get a lot of finance here. We're going to go over financial statements. We're going to go over the reforecast. I'm not going to go over facilities because Bill's here, and Bill's going to tell you the details about the facilities, and you're even going to get some common area. So, I don't have much to say because it's all covered after me. I do have one important point for the board, though. All right, so here's the slides here. Okay, after doing the reforecast, the staff looks at the reforecast. We put out what we think is going to happen for the rest of the year. Now, we don't sugarcoat it. We don't try to guess it or play games with it. We just kind of lay it out with what the data says, and we say, okay, this is where we're going to end up. So once I looked at and reviewed the reforecast, then I asked the staff to look for opportunities to try to tighten up the budget. I mean, we do that all year, but once we get a reforecast, we got a good idea of what we've done the first half of the year. So the second half of the year, I do this every year. I get the directors, Terry and I, every month. We go over it with them and we say, okay, where can we tighten our belts? What is it that we really need, you don't need? We got to make some of these decisions. All right, next slide. Hey, Ray, can you bring me my laser pointer? I forgot to bring that up. I'm forgetting everything today, so. Okay, so like I said, each year after we do the reforecast, we evaluate it. And this year, thanks, Ray. This year, of course, we looked at it and this is what we came up with. Bottom line is we're gonna be negative $506,000. So this is going to be explained when we go over the reforecast later in the meeting here. But that's kind of a shocking number right there. So what do I need to do? I need to go back and look at and work with all the departments to see how we can make that better. So as I looked at the budget and looked at the reforecast, one of the things I noticed that we can work on, and one of the low-hanging fruits, if I can say that, is the common area maintenance. So earlier this year, we were getting behind on the level 4, which is just the 8 feet behind your house. So I asked Michael to see if we can surge, because every year we usually hire contractors for a little bit of surge to help us out. So that's what we did. We hired a contractor to help us do this. So reevaluating this, go ahead and go to the next slide. I had to see where we were at in our progress with common areas. So you can see up here is the preserve. Now by the end of this month, the preserve is going to be done, level 4 and level 5. Now down here in purple are the things that we ended up doing at the end of last year. And you can see some of the areas we've touched this year doing level 4 and level 5 also. And now I talked about the surge. We're getting behind on level 4 because we combined 4 and 5's team together. So we brought the contractor in. The contractor has worked his way all the way down Unit 36 across. So pretty much they've accomplished all of Unit 36. So now if you look at this map, you can see that we're about 50% of the way through the community in level 4 and most of level 5. So what I did, I said, okay, so how can I help with the budget and how can I help with level 4? So this is the approach I would like to take to help with level 4 and to help with the budget. So currently I evaluate we're about 50% of the way through the community. The surge contractor that's working down here in the purple, I would like to swing up to these units in 15, 14, and 17. Now, why would I take them up there? Because I can't get the big machine up there. I can't get the Caterpillar up there. That's where you have to do a lot of this by hand. So it makes sense to move the contractor and all of their labor up into this area. So once we're done here doing just level 4 with the contractor, then I would like to terminate that contract. So what does that do for me? That actually eliminates about $100,000 worth of labor that I had projected for the rest of the year. So once I get done with the contractor here, I cut them loose, and then that gives me about $100,000 of cushion in the common area budget. So how am I going to address the rest of this area? So the way I'm going to address that is I'm going to swing all of the common area staff. So not all of the common area, let me restate that. I'm going to swing the level 5 and level 4 common area staff to work just level 4. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to pause level 5 until our staff can get through and finish up level 4 in this area, which ends up being about 12 units. So pause 5, and then I'm going to concentrate level 4 and 5 labor in order to get through just the level 4 down here in the lower half. All right, so to wrap this up, next slide. So basically, what's the benefit of doing this strategy? We're going to complete level 4 as the residents expect. We go through every year and get level 4 done, so we've got to complete level 4. We're going to terminate the surge after we get through Unit 14, 15, and 17, which will free up about $100,000 to work towards that deficit of $500,000. And then in the end, this is going to help the budget. And like I said, common area budget will be about $100,000 below budget. And then once we get through level 4, we'll start again with level 5. Once they get through that, then we'll turn around and we'll again address level 5. So Matt, that is my strategy in order to complete the requirement to get through level 4 and also to address the shortfall in the reforecast.
Walter, well done. You brought in Our champion for CAM is Denise Lexell, and our chairperson for Common Area Maintenance is Eileen Depka. You briefed all this to them yesterday.
I did. I went over my concept with them, and I believe we all agree on this strategy.
On behalf of all of the residents who want level 4 done, thank you. On behalf of all the residents that want us to not have that big deficit, thank you. I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, Matt. That concludes my briefing.
Thanks, Walter. And that brings Ray to, is it Bill you want me to call up? All right, Bill. Bill McGinn is going to give us his project update.
Bill McGinn, Director of Operations and Facilities Maintenance. I just want to first start off by thanking my team and my staff for what they do for me for the last 4 months. It's been spectacular. I hope that you guys are seeing the improvements that we've made. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with our first project update. The Mountain View Pool Deck starts September 9th, goes through October 31st, hopefully to be reopened on November 1st. This project will consist of stripping the deck and retexturing and coating it. Along with that, my team is going to go ahead and take care of a few extra things that we've got that we hope that you notice. But just while the pool is closed, so that we won't inconvenience you throughout the rest of the year fixing these issues, like lights, painting, things like that. Along with the pool deck, we are right now in the process of adding the pool solar for the heat. You will see ongoing construction in there, digging ditches, putting in the pipes, getting the electrical done, and hopefully we can have that up and running here in the next 2 weeks. Next slide, please. Some of you may have noticed at the Mesquite in between the locker rooms that we had a water leak. I had done some research. I had my guys go in there, cut some drywall out, take a look. We found that there was some pipes that were starting to leak. They went in there, purchased some material that we needed to fix the leaks. So it took us a little longer than we thought because we fixed one and not 2 days later, another one opened up. So we had to take care of that. All in all, these guys, this team of yours went in, replaced the plumbing, got it all fixed, checked for leaks, patched, mud, taped, textured, painted, and got it all done for about $3,500 less than what we were going to spend to have a contractor come in and do the work. Next slide, please. Some of you may have noticed we've gone from 1 to 3 fountains over at the golf course on Preserve, number 18. This was to help agitate the water, clean it, filter it, get rid of the algae that sometimes builds up. But it was a project that was dropped on my plate, and through the coordination of many departments, be golf, common area maintenance, we had an electrician come in. My team, we were able to get it done, and now you have 3 beautiful fountains sitting out there on hole 18. I think they did a spectacular job and came in just a slightly over budget, I think, but not too bad. Next slide, please. Many sidewalk repairs. I get a lot of questions about sidewalks, lifts, things of that nature, and we have a company that has gone through it. Hello? Okay, marked all the sidewalks, and you probably see the numbers on the corners. We are hoping to prepare next year to help resolve most of these issues that are going on, but for the main part, we took care of Preserve, a lot of slabs here at Mountain View, and a couple along Clubhouse, and other roads that we just replaced the slabs altogether because they were so bad. Next slide.
Bill, can I add something real quick?
Sure.
Just because there's a number on the corner of the slab does not mean that that's going to be worked on, just to clarify that.
Definitely. I mean, we're going through, we're checking the higher lifts that we want to do. This is what we're planning for next year. Basically anything that's about 3/4 of an inch or higher, we're gonna prioritize. Anything under that, we'll see where the budget leaves us, and we'll go through and fix those. And they're gonna be an ongoing, cost as the community gets older. So just to give you a heads up, I mean, we're really trying to keep this place safe and, work for the community. So as this slide shows, we're in the middle of, we're at the end of our air conditioning replacement for the year. We've got 2 more left on this building, and this year's reserve replacement for the ACs will be completed. You probably saw the crane out here 2 weeks ago, I think it was, maybe 3, putting on the air conditioning units. This is part of a project, reserve project that you guys requested last year, and it's completed as far as the 12.5 tons go. More to come on that when we get word from Achilles to replace the last 2 for this stage. Next slide, please. For the last few months, see, now we didn't have this meeting last month. You may have noticed a lot of projects that my team has done. We have taken care of a lot of small issues that needed to be addressed, such as a swamp cooler over at the facilities, golf facilities maintenance area. You guys probably seen the resurfacing of the courts, tennis and cornhole. You may have noticed some new handrails put up over at the Mountain View pool. And we also did a project for a CIF accommodation at Arts and Crafts, ceiling fans. And on top of that, these guys are working on getting you shade over at the pools when we close down Mountain View, so that Desert View and the Preserve have extra shades and chairs. Just numerous projects I can't even name. For the last 4 months that I've been here, it's just amazing how much this team works to get things done for you guys. And I'm proud to be a part of their leadership. And one final note at the end, you'll notice on this slide that I have given direction on how to present a concern for facility maintenance. I would appreciate it if you folks kind of took a look at that. It's a direct line for me to see what's going on. Prime example, I had a lady, her wall was lifted, and she had submitted the request, and not longer than about 45 minutes, I was out at her house looking at it, and we're getting ready to make the repairs for her wall. So it works a lot faster than going through the other channels, which is, I don't know how it works, but I would rather you use this form of address when you try to bring in a request or a concern. I can get to it a lot faster than having somebody kind of explain it to me. But you'll also notice that those directions are on what I call my project board. It's an update board. I didn't have time to put a slide in. We were getting it updated, but if you watch the Monday message, the For the Record, and also the monitors around the area, they're constantly updated once a week, and hopefully with these projects that are going on, you guys are noticing a lot of good changes that the maintenance team is taking care of, along with my custodial team. And we're really happy to be here and trying to take care and make it a safe community for y'all. Thank you very much.
Bill, don't go anywhere. Sitting back there in that back corner over there trying to hide from you is Darby Baker.
Hey, Darby.
The lady over there with the hat, that's my wife.
Hi,
Now,
wife.
Darby likes to fill this place up with people for theaters.
Yes.
The last time we were here, the ladies were hot.
Right. How are you doing today?
We do church here every Sunday, and my wife will tell you last week she noticed, Matt, it's so much cooler in here. I want to put a face to the team that is doing this across our campus. We take this all for granted. It just happens, right? It doesn't just happen. It happens because we have a reserve study. We know what we need to do to keep our assets up to date. And guys like Bill do the job of ordering these assets and getting them put in. So my wife feels cool, and Darby can be very pleased, and she doesn't have to sick the old ladies on me anymore.
And we are working on your life, Darby. To the invisible visibles, thank you.
So Bill, just to understand, I think I understand pretty well, you want people to go directly to you for their request for facilities, as opposed to sending something to the board and complaining?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be, like I said, if you follow the instructions on the bottom of the project board, or if you've got this flyer that I just handed out today, it gives you perfect instruction. What it does is it goes directly to Adele, who is our administrative assistant for work orders, and she will fill in all the information that you do. You can go to the front desk and get a form as well, but if you have a computer, you know how to use it, and you're using it, it's the quickest way to get information to me. If you see something, it takes a village to raise a community, I guess. So we can't see everything, but my line to these guys are, we see it, we fix it. So if you see it and it's been a problem that you haven't had addressed, the best way I can answer you is through this. I will call you or email you as soon as I get the notice.
Thank you, Bill.
I'd like to invite our Director of Finance, Terry Dempsey, to come forward. I want to point out something. Terry has just wowed me. You're going to see something entirely different today. We've been having a conversation about how do we communicate financial information to the community differently than we've been. And I want to say thank you.
Thanks.
For hearing and for acting.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Okay, good morning. We're going to go through July's financial statements and cash position, excuse me. All right, next one. Okay, for cash, operating cash for July is $6.1 million. Reserve cash currently has $5.2 million at the end of July, and CIF is $1.6 million for a combined cash total of $12.9 million, and the change in cash from June is about $1.3 million. Okay. Next slide. All right, so our summary income statement for July. July had a subsidy of $77,000, which is better than 2023 by 55.9%. So very good job there. Revenue was slightly better in July. July 24 compared to July 23 by 2.2%. Our net amenities in July were 47% better than July of 2023. So great job with the amenities. A lot of that has to do with keeping down costs. Our restaurants were 15% better than July of 23, and golf is 59% better than was July of 2023. So good job there. Fitness in July was better than July of 23 by 34.5%. Operating expenses, which includes general administrative, facilities, common area, patrol, were 39.9% worse than 2023, but we're only worse than budget by about $855. Next slide. Okay, so going through food and beverage. Food and beverage combined had a subsidy in July of $84,000, which is 15% better than what it was in July of 23. And revenue was 24% better than July of 23 due to all the efforts that restaurants or F&B is making in better quality food and better service. Restaurant expenses were about 10% worse than July of 23. A lot of that has to do with labor and what we have to pay. Currently, restaurants are projecting to have a subsidy at year-end of $484,000. Our next slide. This slide shows our F&B revenue is an increased trajectory with Mountain View projected revenue of $2.4 million, and Preserve has a projected revenue of $1.3 million. So doing better than the last few years. Okay. Next slide. Our cost of goods. Cost of goods for Mountain View were 36.8%, a little worse than average, and then also Preserve was 49.4%. Mountain View should be around 34%, and Preserve usually runs around 44 to 46%. So a little bit of work needs to be done there to bring those numbers back in line. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so July golf combined had a subsidy of $152,000. It's 59% better than what it was in July of '23. Revenue was 21% better than July of '23, and expenses were 38% better than July of '23. Golf is projecting a subsidy of $1.2 million by end of 2024. This is large due to the lost revenue at Mountain View, as everybody knows, I think, by this point. Okay, and next slide. This is our dues allocation year to date. So through July, we've collected $2,042 per rooftop. And as the pie chart shows, $59 of that went to restaurant. $620 of that went to the reserves, $58 to patrol. Common area was $222. Facilities was $337 of that. G&A, which includes the front office staff, IT, marketing, accounting, HR, that accounted for $494 of that. Fitness, $11. Theater lifestyles was $4, and golf was $235 of that. Now, we summarized these statements, and all of these statements are available on the website, so if you want more detailed information, that's available for you for your perusing enjoyment. And that's what I have. So thank you. Everybody enjoy your day today. Okay.
I'm going to call myself to the witness stand now. Next slide. I'm going to talk to you all about the budget reforecast. I attended the Finance Committee meeting last week, first time that Terry trotted out the reforecast. And I sat in the room and I listened. And when you go through a reforecast problem, you got a forecast budget, you need to spend some time with it. So I did that this weekend. I spent a lot of my weekend digging through my treasures, work on the budget, and Terry's reforecast. Monday morning, I met with both Walter and Ray and Terry, and we went through the reforecast in excruciating detail because I told them that I needed to report that out to you today. The commitment that I made in the Finance Committee meeting is that we would have total transparency and that the reforecast would be posted on the website. I need that to happen this week. I made that commitment, so let's get that done. But I feel compelled as your president to bring you the news of what the reforecast tells you and what we're doing about the reforecast itself. Next slide. So the reforecast, the whole purpose is to assess our performance. This way, you can't see that one. Is to assess our performance year to date for the first half. So January through June is actual results, and then the staff has to go through budget line by budget line and project the second half performance. The staff has done that, and their work is the outcome of the reforecast itself. Next slide. So 2024, I'll start with revenues. I'll work revenues. I'll walk us through expenses. And then our favorite topic, we'll talk about amenities and subsidies. So we had a budget this year of $16 million for revenues. The reforecast is going to be $15.4 million, and a shortfall in revenue of $891,000 or 5.44%. A big piece of this is related to the golf, and I'll get to that in a minute. Last year, our revenues, we had $14,400,000. And I'm going to show you where the revenues come from here in just a minute. Our reforecast this year will bring in 15.4, or $1 million more, or 7.22% more than last year. And I want you to remember the 7.22%. Next slide. So how do we generate? Last week, we did a 3-hour workshop with the board, the finance committee, and the staff, because I wanted to ensure we had organizational alignment on this thing we call an integrated financial plan and all the components that go into it. And so that's available for you online as well. The PowerPoint slides are there. The questions and the answers that were developed in the workshop are there. And so it is our objective for everybody that wants to understand how we put this financial plan together, they'll have a greater understanding. So today I want you to understand we get revenues from 2 sources. We generate them through our POA, selling houses, transfer fees, penalties and interest on dues, architectural committee fees, those $15 checks we write, communications income, miscellaneous income, and interest income. That's all the income that comes in that's not attached to amenities. And then we generate amenity through our revenue through our restaurants, through our golf operation, through fitness, theater, and lifestyle. So that's what produces our revenue. It's not just POA. Next slide. So our non-amenity revenue for this year is projected, the forecast is $7.9 million, and the amenity revenue is nearly 7.5, for a total of $15.4 million. So that's how you get to all that. Next slide. So let's talk about expenses. Our budgets, we projected 15.9, and in our reforecast, we're at 15.9. I want to point this out because there's sometimes we take shots on budgeting that aren't fair. When you say you're going to spend $15.9 million and you spend $15.9 million, somebody's done some really good work to look at what it's going to take to drive our corporation for the year. So I want to stomp my foot and say the staff in building this budget and all the people involved in building the budget got it right on the expense side of the house. Last year, our expenses were $13.9 million, and this year they're $15.9 million, or a $2 million increase. Remember that 7.7% I told you to remember? Revenues have gone up 7%, expenses have gone up 14%. That doesn't present any challenges. Next slide. So, if you add it all together, that number that Walter gave you is accurate. We're projecting our revenue to come in at 15.4 and our expenses at 15.9. We have a deficit of 506. When we built the plan, our expectation we were going to produce a positive outcome of $300,000 in budget execution this year. So how did we back up 800,000? Let me show you. Next slide. So with the amenities, our budget, our restaurants, this is all in the budget plan. The original budget plan is what I'll talk about first, and then I'll take you to the projections. The restaurants were supposed to produce 3.9 in revenue and 4.2 in expenses, and a projected subsidy of $359,000. Terry's already told you that number in the reforecast is different. In golf, our revenue was going to be $3.9 million. Our expenses $4.5 million for a subsidy of $626,000. That was the plan. Terry's already told you that ain't reality. Fitness, revenue at $234,000, expenses of $308,000 for a subsidy of some $74,000. The theater, thank you, Darby. I'll salute you. Theater, our revenue plan was $281,000, our expenses $178,000 for a profit of $102,000. And lifestyle, our revenue was projected at $50,000, our expenses at $255,000 for a subsidy of $205,000. And the bottom line here was we were going to fund $1.1 million to cover all of those amenities. Next slide. Here's the reforecast outcome. Our restaurants revenue is projected at 3.7, expenses at 4.2, for a subsidy of 456,000. Disappointing, that's not the 350,000, but almost a 20%, 22% reduction from last year. Golf, revenue projected at 3.1 million. I will tell you, last year we produced 2.9 in revenue, with Mountain View being closed for 7 months. And this year they're projecting they're going to get to 3.1. Our expenses are at 4.3, and the subsidy is just what Terry told you, $1.2 million. That is the sucking chest wound, the budget plan for this year. Fitness, revenue is projected at 244, expenses 309, so the subsidy is projected to be less than we planned for. Theater, just about on plan, revenue of 249, expenses of 153, a profit of 95,000. I think we're within $7,000 of the plan. And lifestyle, 64 or 65,000 in revenue, 185 in expenses, and 120. And you can see that subsidy that we have to fund is 1.7 million. Golf, 800,000 short in revenue, 200,000 under budget in expenses. That's net 600,000. So of the 800,000 change from our plan to now, 600 of the 800,000 belong to golf by itself. Now, Walter briefed you out a plan to take the 500,000 and reduce it by 100,000, and that's the start point for the staff to go forward, to reduce how we're going to end up and finish the end of the year. And so my job was to deliver the ugly truth. There it is. All this information will be posted online. Obviously, this is being filmed, and the reforecast will also be posted. Next slide. Oh, that's right. I could sum this all up. So what's the difference between our reforecast and the plan? The restaurants are projected to be $97,000 higher subsidy than in the plan. Golf is projected to be $588,000 more than the plan. Fitness is $8,800 less than the plan. Theater is $6,680 more than the plan, reducing the profit. Lifestyle is $84,000 better than the plan. So in total, when you look at where amenities stack up as a whole, of it is the golf. Next slide. So I wanted to show you 2023 revenue versus 2024 revenue. I have a strong criticism about how we produce budgets. And I'm challenging the board and the finance committee to do better at being able to get to ground truth sooner. 2023 revenue last year for the restaurants was $3.2 million. It's on pace to increase by $569,000. A heck of a lot of work has gone into our restaurant operation, starting with Walter and Alan. We brought in Real Foods. Chuck Kill was the champion of the board and involved in all of those meetings with Real Food. And we're starting to see the results. So what it's telling me is more of us are eating in our restaurants. Thank you. That helped. Golf, our revenue last year was 2.9. This year it's going to be 3.1, $182,000 increase. I hope it's more than that. I hope they were conservative. Fitness last year was 199, 244, up $45,000. I guess the Rincon room was a combat multiplier in producing revenue in fitness. Thank you, Jeanette. Theater, revenue last year, $186,000, $249,000. Darby's operation, $62,000 ahead of last year. Lifestyle, revenue last year, $62,115. Revenue for this year is at almost $65,000, $2,800. In total, we've increased revenue across our amenities, $861,900. Next slide. So here's the other side. Go back one, Rick. The bottom line number, we've increased revenues 861. Next slide, Rick. And expenses have increased 995. There's a theme in the budget. That's 7% and 14% revenue growth versus expense growth. And I could take you through all the details. Restaurants, our expenses are up 422,000. Golf is up 475,000. Fitness is up 29,000. Theater's up 57, and lifestyle's up 10. And that's how you add it all up. So when you put everything together, that's how we end up struggling to get to the finish line. Next line. So the challenge, how do we lower the deficit number? That number. Walter has already implemented a strategy that's going to, if everything is right, that number is going to be $100,000 less. And what I've asked Walter to do is go to all these directors and squeeze Bill McGinn as hard as he can and all the other people that spend money and see if we can't work that thing down closer to $300,000. I remind everybody, Terry, last year we had a net operating profit of $453,000. Is that close? Am I in hand grenade range? And so we delivered on positive numbers. I'm going to tell you this number because I don't know any way other than to tell you the truth. The highest revenue year we've ever had in golf is $3.2 million. We had it in 2022. We put in our budget this year we were going to produce $3.9 million in revenue. If we'd have had a healthy Mountain View the entire year, I'm hard-pressed to figure out how we could have gotten to 3.9. So I can tell you that I have asked Dan Lineker to be our champion with Troon, to make Troon come in with a plan that we hold them accountable to based on producing revenue and offsetting with expenses. And that we can track on a month-to-month basis whether or not, one, they can produce that plan, and two, they can execute it the way they say they can. It's an important year for us next year. Dan's got the lead on making that happen. Next slide. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the ugly truth. But we're working as hard as we can. We're squeezing this thing as hard as we can. We're doing everything. I want to salute Walter. This CAM initiative is very important to us. We're going to deliver level 4. Level 4 maintenance will be completed this year for all residents of this community. Or Walter and I are going to wrestle in the mud. Thank you. I'm going to invite Dan.
Thank you, Matt. Can you all hear me okay? Yes? No? Is it? So it's on. Okay, cool. Last year, during the strategic planning work that the board did, it was apparent to us that we needed a little bit of help to assure that the guidance that we gave our committees, our advisory committees, which are so important to the work of this community and our board, was consistent. And the committees basically act starting with a charter. And from there, a lot of their work is done through those charters as they interact with the board and giving us advisory help. During that period of time, I asked the chairs of our committees, headed by, and I asked Lee Lexell to chair this task force, to get consistency in our committee charters from one committee to another. each year in January, by governance, we will approve our committee charters as well as the committee chairs. That's one of the first actions after the board meets early in January that the board will undertake. So that should happen every year. So the work here was to get consistency with our committee chair, with our committee charters. So let me give you some scope on this, and you have it up in front of you. The scope of that task force was to get consistency as I described. Authority of the committee should be described, term of the members and the chairs, number of members, ex officio number and term. Next slide. Homeowner requirements to join a committee, goals of the committee, members approved by board, rules of the road regarding committee members' use of social media. Those were the scopes, that was the scope that we gave the task force to look into. They met for probably 6 months or so to develop what I will give you in just a second. Next slide. The members of that task force, I mentioned that Lee Lexell headed it up. Ray Adams from Rules and Golf, Doug Springer from FWR, Fitness and Wellness, Bobby Freer from ALC, Campbell Cheney from Finance, Eileen Depka from CAM, and also Karen Brooks from the Unit Rep Committee. They all met, they all worked on it. Next slide. Some of the consistencies of the charter description, and let me read to you what they look like. They dealt with authority, purpose, chairperson appointment, number of members, liaison and staff supporting if needed, member requirements, social media guidelines, termination of members, chairperson, vice chair, and secretary rules and responsibilities, committee duties, and areas of responsibility. A lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of stuff. Next slide. Again, there's a lot of documents here for that I could go through, and really it's important for you to know that the final outcome of that group was a committee charter template that all committee charters can use. They have a fact sheet that the committees can refer to on how they do business regularly and how they can do it consistently, committee to committee. And they also have a primer with giving them some indication of other assets that they can incorporate in their committee work. Those 3 documents are included in this presentation. I'm not going to go through them. They will be available for you online. But that's what was presented to the board. The board has reviewed those documents, and I am now in a position to make a motion that we approve those 3 documents, charter, facts, and primer, for our committee consistency based on the work of this task force. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the recommendations of the committee charter task force regarding consistency of all HOA2 committee charters. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion to approve the recommendations of the Committee Charter Task Force regarding consistency of all HOA2 committee charters. Do I have a second? Thank you, Denise. Do I have any conversation from the board?
I am talking right into the top. Okay, here we go. I just want to make sure that even though this charter has come out with the boilerplate and a template, what we should use, if individual committees want to add something else, they are allowed to do that.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, that's the intent. It doesn't mean that every committee will have exactly the same language. If there are specifics that a committee would want, The suggestion by the board would be, or by me, and I believe the board would agree with that, to add that to the charter, and the charters would then be approved in January by the current board of that year. So yes, they can add language for whatever purpose that they might.
Okay, because I'm asking this on behalf of the ALC Chair, Bruce Shapey, and the Vice Chair, Kathy Nordine. Thank you.
Any other discussion with the board? Any discussion with our members?
Janine Grippo, Unit 49, Lot 109. Just a quick question, because I was in the Finance Committee when this was being discussed, and the one point of interest that piqued my interest was the discussion of social media. So where it was going was that committee members, or what was proposed is committee members could not post on any social media what they considered committee business. Is that where it landed?
No, actually, that got taken out. If you look at these documents, that social media requirement was removed. There was really a lack of complete consistency, not consistency, but agreement in all the committees. So we just took it out, and that's where Sean's going. If a committee does want to use that, if ALC or somebody else wants to include a social media issue that they feel is important, they can put it in their charter, and the board can approve it. But as a consistency between all committees and charters, that was removed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from our members?
Just a question on the, Denise Anthony, Unit 50, Lot 51. Question on, just checking on Dan, the social media follow-up piece. Before we get too far into that, I know it's not a part of this now, and I understand, but going forward in the future, how does this violate an open meeting law policy? Just a question for research, because residents have a right to attend committee meetings, and whether the committee chairs post on social media, the residents will or will not. So just a clarification point.
Okay, we'll look into it. I'll write that down. Thank you. You're talking about resident versus committee members, right? Huh. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get clarification on what we're asking.
What I'm stating is committee members are residents, and residents attend meetings, and they're going to be allowed to post on social media. So committee members are also residents. So I see a conflict of how does this really work for the open meeting policy. We want residents to know what are happening in committees. And yet you can't take away the individual right of a resident committee member to say what they want to say. So that's my concern.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. We haven't done that.
I know you haven't. I'm just saying it. Be careful as we move forward, because this task force has done a lot of good work. If we're talking, as Sean is indicating, that this might be what is coming forward, I don't want us to go in a circle.
Hey, Denise, I appreciate your concern. There's a reason why this got pulled out. I am also concerned about trying to legislate things that are unenforceable. And so there is no conflict with open meeting laws because we're not taking any steps to put this in anything. And by the way, until the board acts differently, it's just conversation. Yes. Now we can vote. Any other member questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the motion to approve the recommendation of the committee charter task force regarding the consistency of all committee charters and the frequently asked questions and the primer, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, Charlie. Thank you, Dan. I would now like to introduce Dan Nordhill, the committee chairman of the Facility Master Plan Task Force, to provide us his report.
I see a slide up there, but I don't see a slide up here. Yeah. There it is.
I'm sorry, Ray. I'll circle back.
Ray, you got booted. All right, next slide, please. All right. So, board is following a demonstrated successful planning process to guide our community into the future. In prior meetings like today, we've heard about visions, goals, strategies, even the reserve studies. So developing the master plan is just a part of that. Next slide. This should look familiar because this is the same staffing that we've had before. It's a very cross-sectional group of our community. Next slide. We've completed the first 4 meetings of this process. They're designed to be interactive meetings. They primarily engage with the architect from McMahon Group, facilitating these conversations to draw out our task force members' ideas and options. It is interactive, and it's intended to collectively reach a master plan for the community's facilities. Every meeting, the McMahon folks are there. They lead the first 2 hours of the meeting, and then the last hour we spend with community interaction, and that's primarily so that we keep the McMahon folks on task, and they cost us money, so that we can give them the synopsis at the end. Next slide. So you see check marks by the first 4 bullet points here. We're now working with McMahon using this interactive process to gain consensus within our task force that we have reasonable solutions for all the identified gaps and our desires. The effort starts out typically by diverging, so you get lots of ideas, and then as you bring closure, you start to converge to a more focused result. So it's not decision-making, but it's, again, we're trying to reserve areas so that our facilities folks, when they're doing maintenance work, don't go in and do a bunch of work that we're going to tear out 2 or 3 years from now, and so we don't want to spend a bunch of money as a part of our master plan doing something that we know long-term isn't supposed to be there. Next slide. Last month I shared that this effort is a little bit like developing a roadmap with lots of questions about where and how we want to get someplace. As the team has started to converge on options and ideas, we have to continually remind ourselves we're working at a very early level of understanding for any one of these individual projects. We really haven't done any kind of a deep dive into the project, so we kind of get ourselves locked up in as a task force saying, well, we really need more information, and then you got to stop and say, well, that's a future board decision to say, yeah, we want to go do this project, and then develop a separate committee or something to go work on that project in order to define it and bring more definition to what really is it that we need. Our job is to just kind of protect areas and make sure that the boards think about things before we go off and execute and spend a bunch of money that we may have to rework later. Next slide. One of the things I think that's becoming obvious, we really have three major blocks within our community. This Desert View being one, Mountain View being one, the Preserve being one. And the issues or the number of projects really center around those three areas. And there's a lot of projects within each one. If you come to our committee and review these, or sit there and watch some of the slides come up, you'll see 4, 5, 6 activities that go on at each one of those locations that may be a part of a longer, broader vision of the future. But that's a whole lot of work to define when do you start and when do you try to finish, and do you do parts of one or parts of all, or quite complex, I guess is what I'm trying to explain. And again, that's future work. That's not part of this task force. We're just trying to create a master plan that saves space. But that's the vision for the future. Okay, last slide. Here's our next meeting. Come on out. It's very interesting to see what the architects have come up with in terms of solutions to a lot of the things that have been our community input and issues that we've identified. It's coming closer to a solution that we can bring to the board. Thank you so much.
Dan, thanks for your report. Thanks for your leadership in the Facility Master Plan Task Force. I have to be honest, Dan was recruited like Denise Anthony was recruited, and Denise went out and found some folks, and Chuck Keel found some folks, and I found Dan, and then I figured I would shepherd this effort, and the McMahon Group fired me. And said, no, you're a board member. We need a community member to do it. So I looked at my good buddy, Dan, and I said, would you take on a bigger ruck? And you've done that. And I'm grateful, sir, for your leadership. I'm grateful for your friendship, but I'm thankful for your service to our community. So thanks. Ray, we've been 2 meetings kicking you all over the place. Would you come on up here and give us... Ray Adams is the chairman of our Rules and Regulations Committee. He's got an important presentation to make for us today. So welcome up, Ray.
This should be short and sweet. Do you folks hear me out there? Okay. All right. Just to remind folks, it's been a couple of months since we talked. The objective of this exercise, the one I'm reporting on today, was to try to grow together a little closer the HOA 1 and HOA 2 rule set. And in order to do that, we have an ongoing collaboration which puts the committees together once a quarter at least to examine the rules for consistency, see if there's a reason that we would like to make some changes. We put together a little subcommittee, 3 members of each committee, and they reviewed all of the rules collectively. And what they found was that in general, while the language differs, these rules were all promulgated by different people at different times, and regardless, the the intent is generally the same, certainly covers the same groundwork. So we came up with 4 rule changes. We'll talk about those briefly. They were submitted for resident comment, and we received a whopping 15 responses. Clearly, we didn't have anything of much excitement included. So the first was an article in the general section, which omitted the fact that Saddlebrook 1 homeowners and members and guests were subject to the same rules as HOA 2 folks when they were on our property. It is an image, a complement to the rule that is included at HOA 1. We didn't have much people say anything about that. We added a reference to the CCNRs to the definition of common areas, which is complex. The CCNRs covers it very well. It's one of those things that you're really interested, you've got to take a look and refer to the CCNRs to get a full understanding. We did have a person who said that was poorly written, and the committee considered that. We decided that it was okay after all, so we didn't make a change. The next was regarding political activity, and we spent a lot of time on this, unfortunately. The issue is a door-to-door political solicitation. People coming by to ask for money and votes regarding a particular subject. That's not a big deal. I've had 2, I think, in the last 10 years come by my house. Regardless, it's an issue that's covered by state law. And we had a number of people who would like to see a change in this because they wanted to make sure that it was done at a convenient time. As it turns out, the law says they're sorry about that, but the activity is not allowed from sunset to sunrise, and that's the only change we're allowed to make. So that's the change that we are recommending. 4 people wanted to make a change in that, incidentally. Well, one person wanted to know if the rule applied to all elections, including HOA 2 elections, and it does not. It refers to public elections only. We're a private corporation. The next one was on pools. It's Article 4. And this, again, is an image of the HOA 1 rule, which forbids sound projecting devices, boom boxes, etc., from the pool areas unless it's authorized by the general manager. We had 4 of us agree with that. There were 3 people who were concerned that water aerobics would be denied sound devices during classes. And while that's literally an issue that needs to be decided by the general manager, long-standing practice would suggest that those recommendations for the general manager would not be denied. We had one person who wanted a process. Again, that's for the general manager. A person suggested that they specify specific footwear for the pool. Their concern was that sneakers get pebbles caught in them and dirt. They get into the pool, scratch the surfaces, and create additional maintenance. Okay, we're going to talk about that at the Rules and Regulations Committee that we have next. Oh yeah, one person wants the sound equipment upgraded, and we have a process for doing that. Okay, that's all I've got to say on this subject. We need I would like to make a request for a board motion to approve the rules as they were submitted.
Thank you, Ray. So I have a request from Ray that a member of the board provide a motion to approve the rules changes as submitted in this report. Do I have such a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we go ahead and approve it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Larry, I knew you were going to jump in there. I had your back. I have a motion and a second. Is there any conversation, discussion amongst the board members? We're all good? Is there any discussion, questions of Ray from our members?
Wow.
Ray?
Yeah.
You've done real good. Seeing no questions from our members, all in favor of approving the motion to approve the rules as submitted by Ray, signify by saying aye. Aye? Opposed? It's unanimous, Charlie. Ray, thanks to you and your committee for that work. And I want to say this, Ray. Thanks for your work with the HOA1 Rules and Reg Committee. These cross-committee conversations are just as important as the board conversations we're having, so thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Eileen Depka and Michael Park to the podium for a Common Area Maintenance Committee and operations update.
Thanks, Matt. We want to share with you a variety of information today. Before we get into the information, I just wanted to have you take a quick look at what Saddlebrook looked like before Saddlebrook was here. This is a picture of our natural desert, and we've changed a lot. So Michael and I are going to cover a lot of topics that are listed here. Oops, next slide, I'm sorry. And we're going to skip that slide and go to the next one, because we'll cover everything that's on there. To start with, we want to make sure that we have a common understanding of what the common area is. So there are 6 levels to the common area that the common area crew takes care of. The 6 levels can be found in the policy. There's an appendix in the policy that will give you quite a bit of detailed information. I'd like to share with you some pictures. Next slide. If we look at anything from the roadway to a building, that's called level 1. When we look at drainage structures, and we have a lot of them in the community, I've pictured just 4 of them, 4 of the different types. But there's a lot of drainage structures, that's level 2. And when we look at the roadways to the walls of homes, that's considered level 3. Level 4, as you probably are very well aware, is the 8-foot strip behind your home. And then next slide, please. We also have 3 categories within level 5. So level 5, you'll have a home with a wall, another home with a wall, and that area in between is one of the kinds of level 5. Another way level 5 is described is for those of you who live on the golf course. The wall to the cart path is level 5, and on the opposite side of the golf course, the wall to the rough is level 5. And then there's one more description of level 5, and that's for people who have a lot of area behind their home. Level 4 is that first 8 foot. You can see on the picture on the bottom where that little red line is. That's the level 5 then would go from the 8 foot out to the 38 feet. And then level 6 is anything beyond that 38 feet. So those are the 6 levels that Michael's crew works with. So it's a large scope. Now, you've heard a lot about levels 4 and 5, and we want to talk next about some of the concerns in levels 4 and 5. And to do that first, I'd like to share with you some of the information from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We have a lot of invasive species in our community. So I want to share with you what the department says about those invasive species. First of all, the invasives contribute to 42% of the decline of endangered species. So when we have non-natural plants in our community, they hurt our natural environment. They also compete for moisture, for sunlight, for nutrients and space. And when they do that again, they take things away from those plants that are desert friendly and want to grow here, native Arizona plants. They limit the overall plant diversity. They establish the spread of invasives and they degrade wildlife habitat. Now, one of the things I was reading actually this morning for wildlife habitat, sometimes we think all green is good. But when there is wildlife in a community and they're used to and need certain types of nutrients and certain types of plants, and the invasives take over, it hurts that wildlife. That's what's happening to the desert tortoise right now, if you do any reading about desert tortoise in our area in Arizona. They degrade water quality, and they also increase erosion. So basically what's happening is the balance of things gets off kilter if the invasives continue. So let's talk about, so what are our invasives? Well, our invasives, we have 9 of them that are non-native, and we have a lot of them in the common areas. So I've got them listed here, but some of the concerns include, again, they take the light, they take the water, they take the nutrients, and they kill what's good, the cacti, the trees that we want to continue with. Tucson Audubon Society says invasive plants represent a threat not only to native plants and the wildlife who depend on them, but also the health and human safety due to fires they convey. So just a little bit more about invasives. We also have 3 native plants that are considered invasives in our community. Desert broom is one of them. Desert broom likes to grow in any disturbed area that there is. And according to the ASU, it says, hey, it invades all over the place. It needs to be controlled. As far as the Mexican Palo Verde, they're not sure if it's native to Arizona or not, but that's another tree that grows very quickly, it spreads very rapidly, and breaks very easily. Also one that ASU suggests being controlled. Weeds of the West says, hey, creosote, native to Arizona, but again, it spreads rapidly, it takes over and kills other plants within its path. So again, it needs to be controlled. So what do some of these plants look like? Well, if we go clockwise around, starting bottom left-hand corner, that's a picture of desert broom. Then we go to red brome. We go to London rocket. Then we have fountain grass. These pictures were actually taken around the community. We have stinknet, bufflegrass, layman's love grass. We have Russian thistle. Some of you might be more familiar with it as tumbleweed. One of its issues is it breaks off, rolls all over the community, and drops seeds on the way. And then some other of the invasives include the Mexican Palo Verde, bottom left corner, creosote, salt cedar, and bindweed. So now we'd like to shift into some of the things, and Michael's going to talk about what's being done to help us care for these invasives.
Thank you. As you can see, what we're trying to do in level 4 and level 5 is we're trying to eliminate vegetation impacting along the walls. We are trying to decrease the invasive species that are in our common areas. We're eliminating all the diseased and infested cacti and trees that are in the common area, which helps the health of the common area. We're eliminating all the pack rat's nest. We're trimming the tree and cacti to support healthier growth, spread wildflower seeds to increase native growth in areas that were formerly consumed by these invasives. In the future, we plan to add more cacti and trees to the areas that are more barren. Next slide, please. The current process of what we're doing for level 4 and level 5 is we flag only the cacti that are endangered or difficult to see. Now, this is one of the things that we are doing. We also have a guy that is watching what the guy in the caterpillar doing so that he can spot. We also have the guys weed eating around these cacti so that they're not running over these endangered species. So we have a lot of redundancies to protect the cacti that we are needing to protect. The intended process once we go through this, after we get through the first time, is the non-native invasives will be cut down and bagged. Trees and bushes are trimmed as needed. 2 weeks later, a post and pre-emergent is applied. In 4 weeks, we will respray with a post-emergent. After that respray of the post-emergent, 6 months later, we will respread with native vegetation plants. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is in Walters, you will see that I have a map. It is in the Saddlebrook HOA. You can follow what we are doing with level 4 and level 5 and how much we're trying to get through as fast as we can. And this is updated weekly. And then you'll see what our intentions for level 4 and the progress that in the next slide, please. This is Eileen.
Okay, we want to share a little bit more about what the Common Area Committee has been involved in. And when I say Common Area Committee, Michael and team are very much involved. Michael is at our meetings and working together on the things that we're doing. We applied for an invasive plant grant to help with some of the area. It's a $200,000 grant. And in order to do that, well, Michael pinpointed 36.4 acres that the grant would help to get back to a good quality of environment. It was submitted in July. They're reading through them. Scientists are reading through them this month. We'll find out if we can get the grant in September. The really good thing about applying for the grant, it was a lot of work, but the application really forced us to look at what are the goals of getting this work done in the common area. What would the scope of the work be for the grant? And it included processes like the methods. What are we doing for methods to do that? What's the approach? How will we dispose of the invasives? What's the prevent them from coming back in the future? And how do we regenerate the areas? And I think that that's the thing that is very important to us as a community, because once we get those invasives out, they're taking up so much space right now. What are we going to do with those empty spaces? And like Michael said, they're already starting to put the wildflowers in. What the intention is after time and after we're sure those invasives are taken care of is to replant some cacti, trees, and continue the wildlife growth. We had a person from the Department of Forestry come out and look at our area. She spent several hours with us, gave us a lot of input. She was impressed with the number of invasives we had in the community, and just said, you know, she gave us information and expertise as to what our next steps would likely be. Another thing that the CAM committee is involved in, we still have a member of the CAM committee who is walking every square inch of the community in order to update our level maps. And what we know right now is that updates are needed. There's some corrections that are needed. And this is something that he does on a regular basis, and then the committee discusses and goes through those on a monthly basis. We're working hard to update the current policy. We've noticed some omissions and some discrepancies, some contradictions. We're making sure that the levels of care are written in a way so that they're understandable by the community, so that when we talk about level 4, you know exactly what it is, what 5 is, and so on. And then we're looking at maybe getting in a few more appendices to give some information to the community. Another thing that we've done is we've heard that some people are having trouble getting insurance. So what we did was contact Golder Ranch, and they sent out 2 inspectors who spent also a couple hours with us. And it was a very interesting meeting with them. First, they looked through the community. We talked about the common area and what's being done. They said that the common area work definitely supports fire prevention, not only in level 4, but in level 5, because those invasives and things are being controlled and getting within a controllable future. The clearing behind the wall does create a fire block, and they talked specifically about how brick walls also help. They talked about how many of us have pavers in rock or gravel for landscaping, and that also helps fire prevention. They said, hey, we're a community with a fire department. We have fire hydrants. That's also a good sign. And they talked about insurance possibly being denied for people because there's some old fire map in the United States that includes Saddlebrook in that fire zone. They don't believe it should be there. They believe it maybe should be the top of the Catalinas. definitely not Saddlebrook. Their suggestion was to take a look at local insurances who know the area better. So if they're saying, hey, you're in a fire zone, if they know Saddlebrook better, they know this is not a fire zone. And their other message was this is a safe community. The CAM committee also met with Gulf leadership to determine different responsibilities so that as we rewrite the policy and redo the maps, we know who's responsible for what so that there aren't areas that are left into no man's land. And then we also shared practices of what the Common Area Committee, the requirements are for example, taking care of trees, taking out a cactus if it's dead, diseased, or infested, and so on. Next slide, and I'm going to hand it back to Michael.
Thank you. So in this slide, you will notice that there's been, since I've been here, we've done a lot of accomplishments as the director of Common Grounds. And instead of just kind of going through this, I'm going to go ahead and point out some of the projects that have been completed as we've done, which is the next slide. This is an example of what my crew has done since we've been here. This is over at Loma Serena, which is behind Desert Bluff Drive. We were having an issue with the water coming down off of this mountain and hitting right up against the homes along Desert Bluff Drive. We found an area where they had installed previously preventative erosion control. We reopened that erosion control and created what you will see on the left is as the water comes down, it will hit this rocked area which protects that berm and it pushes it both left and right, which gives us a nice elevation. As it continues down, you will see on the right where we are controlling that and keeping that berm protected. And then you will see that we've created what I call check dams to control the velocity or the speed of that water to keep it from preventing a lot of erosion problems coming down and moving that water away from the area behind those homes. And it has worked since we've put this in. We have not been able to, sorry, I'm going really fast. We have not had to go back and work on behind these homes since we've done this year. Next slide, please. Here, this is on Terrace Wind. I was asked because we noticed that we have some springs coming up through the homeowner association, and this was along Terrace Wind, where this was always constantly staying water along this roadway and causing damage to the road. I was able to find a contractor to help me figure out a way to help not stop this spring, because if I stopped it, then I would move it somewhere else, but to control it to a way so that we can maintain the integrity of the roadway. And as of right now, we are still monitoring it, but as of right now, it's working very well. Next slide, please. This is right behind Mountain View Boulevard, or Mountain View Administration Building, sorry. When I first got here, you will see to the left, this is what came in. We had a lot of water coming through. We had a lot of problems with coming on the patio right behind the building. As you will see on the right, we have a nice slope, and then before we regraded it, it was actually going underneath the foundation of this building before it was coming downward. We re-corrected it, moved it away from the building, and it's flowing down, and then we added these gabion steel steps and wall to prevent it, to prevent that soil from moving anywhere else except and controlling that water. And as of right now, it is still working perfectly, and we hadn't had any problems. Next one, please.
So we're moving through quickly, but we wanted to share a few more things that the committee has been involved in. Oh, this is backwards. Okay, we didn't go through here yet. Sorry. So we spend a lot of time on research, and it's because there's so much we're learning, and we want to go to the experts. We want to go to the organizations that have the best knowledge and understanding of the issues that we're working with. So we look at forestry strategies, we are looking at them. We're looking at best practices for eliminating invasives. We look at the statutes to make sure that we're following them. We continue to look at invasive weeds in the invasive weed list in Arizona. We're continuing to look for available grants. We're better understanding or trying to better understand the FireWise program. And again, we are constantly in search of the most accurate information available. Of course, we're working to meet the goals of the Board of Directors. We're looking to meet the duties of the charter, and we work closely with the Common Area Director in order to make the CAM policy happen. One of the things we just wanted to mention kind of in closing here is we work together closely, and I think that that's what gets us to the farthest. It really helps to have the group working together towards a very, very common goal that's important to the community. Michael didn't mention that one of the things that we do after a unit is done, a survey is sent out to them. And we want to just say that we really appreciate the positive feedback that we get both in person, through email, and everything else. But in closing, we just wanted to share some of the positive comments that have come through on the surveys. It really helps. The crew works hard. They're out there in the 110+ degree heat. They do a wonderful job. So we wanted to share that with you and then say thank you for your time and attention. Did the slide get up there? Thank you.
I didn't properly introduce Eileen. She's the chairperson for the CAM committee, and of course, Michael Park is our director for our common area maintenance team. Thank you both for all that you're doing for the community. So I'm up. My last task of the day before we go to your questions is update on the coup. As you, Chief Operating Officer, I am so sorry, Campbell. This has been a 4-month journey for the board. I'm going to talk about Walter here in a minute. But it was 4 months ago when Dan and I and Walter sat down and we talked about the last couple of years, and we talked about the future. And in that meeting, we all came to the same conclusion that we needed to make a change in leadership at the top of the staff. And in many ways, I pointed out here today how well everything's going, but I'll save all those comments for when I talk about Walter. Let me introduce you to Darren Shaw. Darren Shaw is the selection of the board to be our Chief Operating Officer, and on Monday he submitted back to us the signed contract. We got it back in his hands on Tuesday. We've been working with our attorney and HR director for weeks to formulate an employment agreement that could be negotiated by Jeff Evans, who was our consultant from Management Matters, that have effectively negotiated the contract on our behalf. Jeff has agreed to start work here in Saddlebrook on 2 December. I'm sorry. Darren has agreed to start work here on 2 December. Darren has 30 years of experience in community management, 22 years of expertise in large-scale community management. He's currently managing the San Diego Country Estate San Vicente Resort in Ramona, California, which comprises of 3,400 plus homes. He's got a couple hundred employees, and he's got a budget about the same as ours. Prior to being in San Diego, he was up at DC Ranch in Scottsdale. He did a 5-year tour there, and obviously 3,000 homes up there, an exclusive community in the Scottsdale area. His qualifications encompass a comprehensive knowledge of human resources, proficiency in accounting functions for both profit and nonprofit entities, adeptness in policy governance and expertise in food and beverage, golf operations, administrative management, maintenance management, deed restriction enforcement. He's well-versed in plan design processes, the formulation of long-range plans, reserve plans, business plans, policies and procedures, inventory systems, and industry best practices. Darren comes to us with all the credentials you can have being in this profession. I'm not going to list them. You're going to meet Darren, and I've got 90 days to sell or promote Darren, and so I can put all kind of excitement into his arrival here. But this is a significant change for our community. The board took this task on. It wasn't easy. We spent most of the year having this conversation. So, Darren's coming. And so, we, the board, asked Walter to stay and be our number 2 guy. And Walter has decided to reinvent himself in another way, but he has agreed to stay here and serve this community until the chief operating officer arrives. Now, this was 4 months ago we had this conversation. Walter has been working tirelessly, and I can tell you, I know because we're spending like 8 hours a day together, working through our challenges and problems here. And so I had to inform him on Monday that we had another 90 days to go. And so he hasn't told me he's, thanks, Matt, but no thanks. So I expect him to be here. But Walter, I have to tell you this. I can't imagine a more professional transition in governance than the one that we're undertaking. And it's only been possible because of your integrity and your character. Your willingness to continue to serve this community in the fashion that you are. On behalf of the entire board, I want to express our appreciation and thanks for hanging in here with us as we go through this transition. Somewhere down the road, I'm going to let Walter express his appreciation to the community for the 10 years plus he spent here serving it, but we haven't arrived at that point yet. So, I'm now in a position to talk to you about our upcoming events. September, we must be welcoming everybody back from summer. We've got a golf committee town hall on 11 September. What's important about that is that's really Troon Day. And Dan, why don't you talk to us about Troon Day?
Troon Day, there's a lot of activities. There's rope jumping. No, I'm just kidding. Troon will be here. They're going to, Matt Malloy, who is the Vice President of Operations with Troon and is responsible for our account, will be here. He'll talk a lot about Troon, where they are as a corporation, as a company, and how we fit into their plans going forward. Mike Carpy, who is the Director of Golf here, will talk about new hires that are in the works right now to support the golf operations side as well as the agronomy side. So he'll be doing that. He'll also introduce the projected, suggested rate card plan for 2025. That rate system will be approved by the board at the September board meeting, and Mike will give us an introduction to Troon's thinking on rates for 2025 at that meeting. After that, there's some question and answer. We will also go through, I'll back up 1 second, David Stout, who is the director, regional director of agronomy, responsible for our courses, lives here in Tucson. He and others have been working on some questions that Larry has been asking about different timing for preserve renovation. So he's developed kind of a scope of work for sure, and also the timing and cost associated with a 4-year, 2-year, and a 1-year project to renovate the preserve golf course. He will go through that at this meeting as well to give you an update of that and what that looks like, and Larry's working that very hard, so this is just information that Larry currently already has. And then there'll be questions, time for some questions. Got any questions for Troon about golf or whatever? So looking forward to it. It's 2 o'clock here at Desert View, September 11th. There'll be more information coming very quickly on that, but hope we get a big audience. And there, I will tell you, Troon is looking forward to